Do you know why I don't ask you to like and subscribe and ring the bell in my videos? Not because I don't want you to, but because I think my audience is smart enough to know how YouTube works without me telling them how it works. This site is 16 years old. By now, I'm sure you can figure it out. I have to say, I'm kind of glad that Cyberpunk 2077 had such a horrible launch. If the game had been really well loved, I can just picture a bunch of fanboys calling each other choom on Twitter, or replying to McDonald's tweets with things like, "Shut up, corpo scum." Although the irony of a bunch of people supporting a multi-billion-dollar gaming industry while claiming to be anti-corporation would be really funny. But it did have a horrible launch from an audience's perspective. And here we are, nearly 6 months after release, and Sony still hasn't allowed it back on the PlayStation Store, even after 2 major patches. On the PS4, the game still plays like shit, and quests in general across all platforms are still buggy. I had decided to wait until the game had its promised big patches to try it. So a few weeks ago, with the latest updates installed, brand new game, I started playing, and it's still a mess. Want to switch your camera view in your car from first person to a behind the car view? Press the button to do that, right? And sometimes it works. Other times it takes like 20 to 30 seconds for the camera to change. Sometimes it just doesn't seem to register at all. There's still pauses and lag, textures still appear really low res before properly rendering up close. And you thought Roman was annoying in GTA 4? At least he didn't call you mid-mission. Your phone in Cyberpunk won't fucking stop. At one point, I was in the middle of a main mission. I'm talking to this guy, Takamura. I got Keanu Reeves also yammering on in my head, and then a phone call comes in, which just auto answers. It's this girl Judy panicking about something or other. 3 fucking people are talking over each other, and then I got 2 dialogue trees open to reply to both Judy and Takamura simultaneously. As I'm trying to answer one, the other's being impatient like, "Hey, don't ignore me." It was so fucking muddied, I have no idea what any of them were talking about. Also, 12 hours in, and I had a bug happen where I could not progress any further. Delamain, the cab company run by Max Headroom or whatever the fuck, called me and then never spoke. So no one else could call, I couldn't call anyone, missions won't trigger, game's just over. There are so many failures at every level. Yes, obviously the corpos rushed it out. Although, people go, "Oh, the developers had no control." Okay, but it was all the same company. CD Projekt Red was the developer and publisher. This wasn't like EA or Square pressuring some small studio to make a deadline. But the game had been delayed so many times, obviously some decision maker went, "We're putting this game out. No more delays, there's fucking money to be made before Christmas." And indeed there was. They sold 13.7 million copies, supposedly just by the end of 2020. Game came out December 10th, so 21 days. They generated $959 million at $70 a pop. But what about the refunds, Buckley? Oh, we'll get to that. But presumably, the bean counters have to be happy. Nearly $1 billion in sales. But you know who's disappointed that the game wasn't more well received? Well, the game's developers, of course. Recently, lead quest designer Paul Sasko, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but did a series of streams where he played through the game, I guess like a chef being forced to eat a shitty meal he cooked. Presumably, he played it on a very high-end PC, so he at least didn't have to deal with the performance issues. Anyway, at the end of it, he made these comments. Some people said he was on the verge of tears. I didn't really think that, but you could tell he was upset by the reactions from some people.
Our goals have been super ambitious, and I don't really feel that you, the players and journalists, fully, completely understand how difficult it was to make this game.
Aw, Muffin, do people not understand how hard you worked on this game? Does that make you feel sad? Well, if you do want to cry about it, you can use those tears to moisten your lips while you slurp on my Type 1 default-sized dick, because your team deserved every bit of criticism you get, and then some. This "but we worked hard on the game" shit is the ultimate asking for a participation ribbon. If you spend 100 hours sculpting a snowman out of a bovine's fecal matter, I don't care how hard you worked on it, you still just have a big pile of bullshit. Yeah, I get it. The game was hard to make. Video games are hard to make. But guess what? Many of them work. GTA 5 ran on a fucking PS3. I played through it when it was released with pretty much no issues. Probably a little slowdown here and there, but it wasn't a broken game. Same with Red Dead 2 on the PS4. Game is massive, and it's incredible looking. Sure, it's not as full of a world as Cyberpunk, but I never had 3 characters all talking to me at once about 2 different quests, or got a fucking telegram from a character that soft-locked my game. He talks about how he didn't feel they got enough credit for being ambitious.
And I'm not saying that you guys should be like giving us more credit for it, because you should demand a fully functional, well-done game, and that's your right. The thing what I'm talking about is more of an acknowledgement, that was a very difficult game to make, a very ambitious one.
That's the only thing you do get credit for. Yeah, I get it. You shot for the moon, and you got to about the stratosphere, shit your pants, and realized how much further the moon was, and then said, close enough, I guess. So yeah, you deserve the criticism. But to add some perspective, they don't fucking deserve death threats, which they also reportedly got when they delayed the game. That is fucking scumbag behavior. Even if you're just saying dumb shit like, kill yourself, over a video game, your value system's a little fucked if you think someone should die over a video game being bad. Now, let's talk about the returns. So, the reactions were so bad. Worst game ever made, whatever. Since they allowed returns for this game, which was almost unprecedented, there must have been a ton, right? Like, must have been half. No. CD Projekt Red reports only 30,000 returns. Of course, that's what they know of. That's the ones they helped process. That may not include direct returns to Sony, which Sony had to make a fucking process for doing returns just for Cyberpunk. They didn't have one before. That's how much demand there was from people wanting to get their money back. And it would not have included any physical returns, like people going to GameStop to be like, yeah, this is trash, so give me my money back. Forbes estimates it could have been as many as 300,000 returns when you really break it down. But still, 13.7 million sales, that means only 2% returns at the absolute highest, 0.2% if you just took CD Projekt Red's numbers. So, there's no consequences for this. You know what this says? Gamers have loudly said, yeah, we'll pretty much tolerate anything. We know it was a shit sandwich, but I'm gonna eat every bite of it and then complain that they didn't use enough mayo and the lettuce was a little dry. And then probably go back for seconds. And that brings us to the biggest problem. So many devs are treating games like early access these days. And people just shrug their shoulders and go, well, I mean, that's the industry right now. You put out what you have and you patch it later. But it doesn't have to be. You can just stop buying those games. Yeah, CD Projekt Red built up a lot of goodwill with The Witcher 3. It's not like they were a shit company to begin with, so I get why you thought Cyberpunk would be good. But guess what? Their next big game will also sell 10 million copies or more at launch. Just like Bethesda, after releasing Bugfest after Bugfest, and everyone either seems to forget that Fallout New Vegas crashed every 2 hours, and Fallout 4 had glitches that would lock you out of finishing the game for one faction or another, and that Fallout 76 just straight sucked, and they still go, man, once they announce Fallout 5, I'm giving them my money right away, I can't help it. I get it. Games are way more complicated than they've ever been. We've come a long way from the days where like one guy programmed a game where he got cucked by a big-dicked spiky lizard man and cock-blocked by Ben Shapiro in a diaper and a big hat for 8 levels. It's a vicious cycle. People demand more complex games will have more bugs, and people are seemingly willing to overlook those bugs because games are more complex. And in a few years, there'll be a game that makes Cyberpunk look like one of the most competent games ever put out. I mean, you already have Returnal, a game made specifically for the PS5, so only one console that they had to worry about. And they had to roll back a patch because it was corrupting saves. When the patches are worse than the fucking bugs, that's when you know this is a broken system. So, at what point will these companies ever face any real consequences for putting this shit out? The answer is when you stop giving them your money. When you stop pre-ordering games. I mean, stop doing that anyway, especially if you're buying digitally. You know they can't run out, right? Oh, I'm sorry, but here at the PlayStation Store, we don't have any more Call of Duty. We're all sold out. Check back in a week when our mom pays to add more bandwidth. And if game studios suffer because they aren't selling 13 million copies on day one, I guess maybe they'll make more of an effort to put out a completed game on day one, rather than making you the beta testers. Real emphasis on the beta. You're not just playing their shitty unfinished games, you're paying for it too. And you love it. You're saying, oh, thank you for this glorious opportunity to playtest your game for you. I'm so honored to pay money for your broken garbage. I follow you on Twitter. Please tell me the next time you're taking a shit like this so I can be the first to lick it. But maybe I'm too harsh. After all, for all you masochists out there, you're never gonna find a dominatrix who will step on your nuts for only $70. So maybe this is the cheaper way to achieve that same feeling. In economic times like these, you gotta do what you can to save money on your kinks.